The deadly Charlottesville protests reigniting a national conversation about race. The president quick to condemn the violence, but the mainstream media continues to criticize his response. Are they being fair or overly critical? Joining us right now to discuss, we've got Lawrence Jones, host for The Blaze. We've got Deneen Borelli, Fox News contributor, and Dr. Darren Porcher, a former New York City Police Department officer. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, Lawrence, let's start with you. I know that after the president came out, first time made the statement, you felt like he was a little vague, should have been more specific.
Yeah, he missed it. You call the enemy by his name, especially when it comes to domestic terrorism, call it white supremacy, whether it's radical Islam. I think it's hypocritical of me to, tell President Barack Obama to call the enemy by his name and not have the president do the same thing. But then he pivoted, and I applauded him. I said the media, it's time to move forward. And then yesterday he went back to the same statement, talking about both sides, and I think he has created an unforced error. It's a problem. You got to call the enemy by his name. You got to address it. You can't say both sides were the same.
So the day before, when he was very specific, talking about white supremacists, right. KKK.
He got it right then.
He got it right then, but then
he went back. He went back, and the thing is, there's a time to criticize Antifa, whatever the name is, and I've done that. Black Lives Matter as well, but at this time, is to call the white supremacists by their name and let the world know that it's not tolerated in America.
Deneen?
I think it all comes down to the timing of the events that happened over the weekend. The events were still unfolding, and for the president to come out when he did, not really knowing all of the facts, and his statement was, I condemn all forms of hatred, of violence, of racism, bigotry. That statement was a blanket statement for all of the hate, destruction, and violence that was going on.
See, I think the statement he made 2 days ago was to defend the first statement, which he came out and he said repeatedly, listen, the reason I wasn't more specific is because it was an unfolding situation. We didn't know what was going on. Doctor?
Well, I kind of agree with my two counterparts here. I mean, the last statement was extemporaneous in that he should have reverted back to the second statement. And one of the things we have to look at was that press conference was for infrastructure that he had at Trump Tower, and then he just went off.
To talk much about that.
Right, exactly. Then he went off the rails. But it goes back to who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is a person that shoots from the hip, and he believes that this is the horse that I rode in on, and I was successful at doing that. Therefore, that's why he reverted back to shooting from the hip, so to speak. But it goes back to, this was a statement that the second statement was sound. He should have stuck to his guns, and he would have been fine. We wouldn't have had this argument. Moving forward, there are a lot of good things that Donald Trump can do. One of the things that he connected with the Heather Heyer's mother online and stated that she was a great person, so on and so forth. But he can do a lot more than that. He may want to revisit that church in Charleston, South Carolina, connect with that population. Moving forward, believe it or not, we're going to forget about this. But the way that we forget about this is through Donald Trump's actions.
All right. What actions would you like to see him take?
Great points. And I just want to mention that, with his voice communicating to the black community when he was running for president, I think he should take his message to these communities, have rallies in Chicago and Detroit and LA to let folks know that he wants to do something about jobs, education, and crimes on the streets of these inner cities. Because we've had politicians who have not done anything for many, many years for these communities, and I think he is someone who can bring about change, and that's something that the left does not want.
All right, Lawrence, what do you think? Rallies enough?
Well, he has to speak to the heart. I mean, I defend the president on economics all day because I think it's best for black America and all Americans, but the president has to speak to the heart. And when it comes to race relations, you got to get that right. As someone that's on the right, a conservative libertarian, this is where the right struggles when it comes to race relations and getting black voters. When I go and speak all the time, I get them on the economics, I get them on the social issues, but when it comes to these race relations, they start to want to go away. The president has to speak to that, or it's going to distract from his agenda. The president should be leading this week when it comes to businesses and economics, because this is his strong suit, but it's been a distraction because of race relations.
Deneen, what do you think about the move across certain communities here in the United States to remove the Civil War and Confederate symbols and monuments?
Well, a lot of it's been done with vandalism, which I am totally against. That's the wrong way to do it. I do believe it's a local issue. And again, you can't whitewash history. History is history. You can't change it. But you have some who do want to change history, and you just can't do it.
Yeah, that's a problem, too, because I would argue that you let the citizens in the town take care of that. But again, when you start to forget history, then it starts to repeat itself. But another point that I have is I don't believe in participation trophies. If you lost, I don't understand why you have a statue and honoring. And so I think the right should lead on that. Robert E. Lee, you lost, so I don't understand why we're honoring you.
Dr. Porcher, I get it. If I were to walk past a statue every day on the way to work that symbolized something that I really hated, it would eat in my craw for a while. I get the anger and the frustration, but at the same time, what do you think we should do from here?
I mean, I want to agree with my two counterparts. It's a localized issue, and those municipalities have to vote on it as such. I oftentimes, as we spoke of, said, I don't even care about the statues that I see as I'm walking down the street. I feel that a lot of these statues should be in museums, but it goes back to it's a localized issue, and therefore they should be voted on in those municipalities moving forward.
All right. A great chat this morning. Thank you very much for joining us live here in New York.